is whatever it takes to quote unquote end the war. But that could mean total humiliation for Ukraine. I think Donald Trump does not care how much land Vladimir Putin takes from Ukrainian territory. I think he cares about the idea that he was the one who ended the war.
Let's introduce our guests. Joining me on Global Pulse tonight is Christopher Hale. He's a Democratic political operative. He joins us live from Nashville in Tennessee. Christopher Hale, thank you so much for joining me on Global Pulse. A lot to unpack here. Let's begin with the most recent and important development. After all the hype and hoopla around an upcoming Trump-Putin summit in Budapest, we are now told that it's off. And Trump says, I don't want a wasted meeting. What exactly is going on here, according to you?
I think it shows what's been so clear to us on the Democratic side of the aisle for so long is that Donald Trump responds to Moscow not to the interests of Ukraine, not to the interests of the American people, but directly to Vladimir Putin. I think this is concerning for India and nations across the world because it shows that the United States is open to sovereign nations being invaded and land grabs. It's ironic, of course, here in the United States, we're so concerned about porous borders and closing our borders, but it seems the president doesn't recognize other countries' borders and the need to protect those. So this is not unexpected. One thing I'll also add that I think is really important for your viewers to understand the last person who talks to Donald Trump is the one he listens to. The latest person in his ear is the one that he listens to. So I think as the information flow that's controlled by his people, his staff, if they want to influence him, they ensure that the last voice is the one that they want to win.
Well, yes, it's very hard to say who Donald Trump is really listening to, who is advising him. Does he even listen to anyone? I think that is one of the many questions that people ask. But, from relentlessly pursuing a peace deal between Moscow and Kiev to now calling off the Budapest summit and saying, I do not want a wasted meeting. What, according to you, changed after last week's phone call between Donald Trump and Putin? There are some media reports, Christopher, that suggest that Trump has been categorical that he wants Putin to agree to a ceasefire, and that is a demand that Putin is not willing to meet. Do you believe that may have been the deal breaker as far as the cancellation of this Budapest summit is concerned?
Correct. Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I think that the president has had a victory, at least a fragile victory in securing peace between Gaza and Israel. And so I don't. I think he wants that headline to lead the day. Really remember that President Trump is very particular, not about the actual outcomes itself, but what shows up on the front page. What's the headline? And I think he actually wants to elongate the story of peace between Hamas and the Israeli forces, a fragile peace, I must acknowledge. But I don't think he's going to get what he wants from President Putin and in this war. Mind you that President Trump told us during the campaign last year that he would end this war on day one. This is the 275th day of his administration. I don't think there's any evidence that we're closer to ending this war than we were on January 20th. So I think the reality of it is he can't bend the players to his will, and so he wants to take it off the front page by going to Hungary, by having this meeting with Putin, and put the fragility of his position front and center for the media and the world to see. I don't think President Trump wants that.
Some also felt, Christopher, that after the Alaska summit, Trump ended up with a bit of egg on his face, and that if anyone gained from that summit, it was actually Vladimir Putin. Because what Trump managed to do was to end Putin's international isolation. He rolled out the red carpet for him, even applauded him as he waited to receive him on that red carpet. Putin was able to say what he wanted to. He was in no way put in a situation where he needed to commit to peace talks in any way. He never even formally agreed to meet with the Ukrainian President Zelensky. What he did do instead was to invite Trump to the next round of talks in Moscow, something which is perhaps never going to be acceptable to Zelensky if he were ever to be a third party to those talks. Do you believe that after the Alaska summit, Trump, even though he did try to have another summit meeting with Putin in Budapest, might have felt that, the stakes were too high and the optics of the last summit were not all that great for him?
Yes, and I would actually go back even further than that. The Helsinki summit of 2018, famous that that President Trump, because he could never acknowledge that because he thought it was with meetings with Vladimir Putin, and it does actually hurt his standing at home politically in the United States. I think a third attempt for Putin to upstage Trump perhaps was too much to stomach. And once again, I don't. I think he wants to take the Ukraine Russia war off the front page. I think he wants it to be a back page issue. I think he wants the headlines in this country to be in terms of foreign policy, what's going on in Israel. So I think this is a weakness for President Trump. I do not think he's thinking about this as a peacemaker. I think he's thinking about this, much to his chagrin, as a politician. I think the political optics are negative for him, and so he's trying to remove this issue for the time being.
After all, this is a president who's very high on PR and publicity. For him, it's all
Sure.
about the image and optics. And yes, as you rightly pointed out, this is a president who had claimed he would end the Russia Ukraine conflict within 24 hours of assuming office. Now that looks like a distant dream, even as he desperately continues to lobby for the Nobel Peace Prize that has obviously eluded him this year. But talking about some of the other important recent developments and, Donald Trump's continuing flip flops on the Russia Ukraine conflict, what do you make of the reports, Christopher, that suggest that a few days ago, Trump actually tried to pressure Zelensky into giving up the Donbas region in the hope that he would be able to get a summit with Putin and take the peace talks forward? And this comes just weeks after Trump had actually suggested he believed that Kiev could actually win back much of its lost territory. The question is, you just don't know what Donald Trump is going to say next. It could be a complete 180-degree turn from something that he probably said a month ago.
Yes, and I think what's remarkable about that is it's after the February meeting in the Oval Office where it was horrific. It was an embarrassment to consume the Zelensky Trump meeting where J.D. Vance dressed down President Zelensky and said, "Have you ever said thank you?" It has been remarkable seeing President Trump wave back and forth. He is a flip flop president since the beginning that he rolled out on the elevator. He shifted his positions even before he entered political life. But you're right, this is noteworthy because the topsy turvy nature changes week by week. And I think it's really a situation of who is going to swoon him more. He wants to be seduced. And Zelensky, after that Oval Office free fall in February, has shifted his tone, and it's been to his advantage. If I'm Zelensky, I hold out. I keep as much as I don't like this as a Democrat here in the United States. I think he keeps flattering Trump as much as he can. I do think at the end of the day, it is in Donald Trump's best political interest, which is what guides him to support Ukraine. And so I do think that will be the end goal, but I don't think he wants to be seen as in Ukraine's back pocket.
All right, frankly, our hearts went out to President Zelensky after that Oval Office blowout that we saw in the month of February. But poor Zelensky, he really has swallowed his pride, put up with all that humiliation, and, now on every occasion remembers to thank Trump at least 100 times for all his help and support to Ukraine. But on a more serious note, there are many who believe that Trump's real interest, and I think you pointed this out, lies not so much in ending the conflict as in scoring a win for himself. In the process, there are fears, Christopher. Is he selling Ukraine out? Because on the one hand, there are reports that suggest that he has been pressuring Zelensky into giving up the Donbas region, something that Putin desperately wants. And on the other hand, the U turn again on the Tomahawk missiles. After having promised Zelensky that he was going to sell Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, there was one phone call with Putin, and it seems everything changed after that, and Trump decided he was no longer going to provide these missiles to Ukraine.
Yes, and I think that the reality of it is I think Donald Trump's dream scenario is whatever it takes to quote unquote end the war. But that could mean total humiliation for Ukraine. I think Donald Trump does not care how much land Vladimir Putin takes from Ukrainian territory. I think he cares about the idea that he was the one who ended the war. He was the one who brokered peace. He believes, and he might be right on this, honestly, that the headlines in history will not remember, at least in the beginning, how much Ukraine lost. It will remember that Donald Trump was the initiator of peace. And if you're Vladimir Putin, that's completely fine. If you get more land than you started with, that is a completely fine outcome because you have your own domestic concerns. Remember, he's trying to be Peter the Great. He's trying to expand the Russian Empire as far as it can go. And so his goal will be achieved.
All right. Where do these peace talks really go from here remains the $1 million question. This war has gone on for way too long. Everyone wants to see an end to it. But at the moment, there really is no end in sight. And whether he likes it or not, fact is Donald Trump has so far failed spectacularly in his efforts to bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. Well, on that note, Christopher Hale, thank you so much for speaking to Global Pulse. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.